Hey guys, welcome to the Painting Business Pro Show. Today I've got Matt Camp joining me. He's up in Canada on Vancouver Island in a population of 160,000 people. So a little bit of a smaller area. He's been in the painting business literally his whole life. He was like spraying stuff when he was 3 years old. He took over his dad's business coming out of high school. And for 5 or 6 years, he stayed pretty small. And he was capped around $300,000 a year. And then in 1 year, he launched his business up to $900,000 with super good margins while working about almost half as much as he was before. In this episode, we're going to get into the one thing that unlocked that tripling of his business, where he tripled his business, tripled his income while working less. And we're going to dive deep into the marketing that he does that he says will generate him $1.3 million next year. And it's only two things that he does to generate all that business. So we're going to dive deep into this. It's an awesome episode for anybody who is around 300K and wants to grow. Some great lessons to Matt. So I hope you enjoy it. This is the Painting Business Pro Show, where we share inspiring stories from people who are just like you, who have created extraordinary results in their business and their life. We'll take the mystery out of it and show you behind the scenes exactly how these results happen. There's a simple process and a roadmap to follow to create life-changing success in business. You are capable of more than you realize. So listen in, discover what's possible, and let's unlock your potential. Let's go. Welcome to the Painting Business Pro Show, Matt. Excited to have you here and share your story. So let's start by just going back to kind of a high-level overview of how you got in the painting business and how you came about running your company up in Canada.
Perfect. Yeah, looking forward to it. High level, I started super young, so second generation painter. My dad had his own painting company. There's a photo of me somewhere. I was spraying furniture in the backyard, and I was like 3 or 4 years old. So yeah, just kind of grew up in it, and I've kept at it. So.
All right, great. So yeah, 3 to 4. That's really stardom young.
Yeah.
And then your
Yeah.
dad had a painting company, right?
He did. Yeah.
Okay. And did you grow up like when did you work in that company? Like how did you? Because you ended up taking it over. What happened before you ended up taking it over?
Yeah. So I took it over. Evenings, weekends, odd projects. I kind of just grew up in and around it. Like I went to school and everything, but it was just I was in a painting business family, so I'd help out with stuff. We'd go to the painting contractor shows and all the barbecues at the paint store. So everyone just knew me. So I just grew up in it and learned to paint right away and kept doing it. So
Nice. So you're one of the best painters in Canada.
probably not, honestly. I got niches that I'm quite good at, I'd say, but painting's such a wide, I don't think. I think anyone who really looks at it objectively is like, yeah, I suck at 99% of it.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
it's just the common joke of like anyone who grew up like with the brush in their hand. It's like that's
Yeah.
one of the hardest things is getting the brush out of my hand because like
Yeah.
no one can do it the way I can do it.
Yeah.
All right. So then, how did you come about taking over the company?
Honestly, it was my dad got sick of it. He got burnt out. He was in it for a while, had some success, but it was tricky. Right. So then he got essentially sick of it and we doing his own website design for the business. I was like, let me do this because this makes more sense and I'll do that. And just the network that he had here in terms of like referrals and all the business that we had never really stopped. So we'd always do a couple projects. And as I got closer to being finished school, it was like, okay, well, we're doing these jobs here and there, making good money. What am I going to go do for a job? Because I didn't have a direction with school. It's like, I might as well paint because I'm making half decent money and I know the trade, and so that's at like 16, 17 before I'm even done high school. It's like, let's just do some jobs on the summers and this and that and became a business. So
What did you go to school for?
high school, nothing.
Oh, got it. So this is
yeah.
Cool. So high school. Got it. So
Yeah.
you got out of high school and
Yeah.
you already had a business that was making some money. How much money was it make? And you were running it basically at that time. Like your dad.
Yeah. So yeah, like 2016-ish, like I would have been, I don't know, grade 10, grade 11, like still in high school. And I was going to quotes with my dad. And then I got pretty sick of him being around pretty quickly. Cause I'm like, shut up, let me do the estimate. And, other than like harder jobs that I didn't have as much experience with, I would just go do it on my own. And then he kind of saw that I wanted that freedom. And so he just handed it off to me. Cause as I said, he had, issues previously that like he didn't really want to invest in it and maybe didn't see a future there. Whereas for me, I was more optimistic about, what I could create. So
that was, when did you graduate high school?
It would have been 2016, 2017.
2016, 2017.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So graduate high school 2017. And then it was yours from there. Your dad was basically out at that stage.
Yeah, because like years ago it was Brad Camp's painting. That would have been circa 2002-ish. And then he tried to sell the business actually in about 2009, 2008, and he couldn't because it was Brad Camp's painting. Like, who wants to buy that name? And so he created Seriously Painting, which is what it now is. And then so kind of started trying to market as Seriously Painting. But again, he was pretty burnt out.
Yeah. All right, great. So how is the business doing in 2017? So you graduated high school, you took over the business, you've
Yeah,
obviously got all the background.
yeah.
Give me a quick idea of what did that business look like in 2017, that first year out of high school?
So like 2016, 2017, it was barely business. We were just doing jobs because, as I said, we had a lot of referrals. Like, we knew people at the paint stores, we knew designers, we knew builders, and we had a bunch of old customers. So, you're talking like 40 to 50,000 a year, super part-time, making good money when I did work. But like, man, I'm 17. I was playing video games and fucking around,
Okay. All right,
you know?
great. So
And
so
then
you were
from,
doing all
from
the painting
there,
yourself. You're doing
yeah,
all the painting yourself,
yes,
doing 40, 50K.
yeah,
So 18 years old, making 30, 40 grand, very part-time. Good
super
gig.
part-time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the time it was fun, and then from there we got busier and busier and steadily grew. So,
Uh-huh.
and then it was like, okay, I need to become a real business because we were required in BC, which is where I live, to get a GST number and like start charging goods and services taxes. And then, from there it just grew. And then all of a sudden I was in it and I'm like, okay, I have a business.
Yeah, so what was that from 2017, let's say, to 2023, high
Yeah.
level, like how did progression
So
happen?
yeah, so we did about 50, 60K. And then the next year was about 100K, 120K, up to 180-ish, 200 the next year. And then up to about 250, or no, 260, 270, and then about 300. So, and then the last 2 to 3 years is steady in around three. And that was kind of
Okay.
with myself, one other painter and a halftime painter. That's where we were at.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So that's I was going to ask. So
Yeah.
300,000 bucks for
Yes.
the last few years.
Yeah.
You full-time painter, half-time painter, you doing the quotes.
Yeah.
And what were you making in profit per year?
So it got better over the last couple of years because like I hit a cap for gross revenue of about 300,000, but each year, I probably gained a couple percentage in the net profit. So last year was about 110, 115, depends on what you count. But cause I like to buy nice camera equipment and stuff, which is like, it's for the business, but it's also for me, cause I use it for marketing, but yeah, 100, 110 or something like that last
All
year.
right, so 300K, 150K, which, and I'm getting that kind of straight because a ton of people are, I think, in that range,
Yeah.
between 150, $300,000 in business, and you made about 115. Was that what did your work schedule look like to do that?
It's about 50 hours a week ish average. There's weeks that were more. So I'd go up to 60, sometimes 70. I didn't like to do that much, cause yeah, it's rough, right? Like, you have no life when you're, hey, I'm going to get up, go to the paint store, go paint, and then do 2 or 3 estimates. And then like, hey, I've got to also do some admin and send my invoice to get paid for that last job that we just finished up yesterday. So doing 40 hours a week painting for me, I could get everything else done in 10, and 50 didn't feel bad for me. It's just like, oh, this is easy, because I know I can do 60 or 70, but it's just, that was my life,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, and the trouble there is you can't quit painting because then you'd have to pay someone else to do that, and then the margin would be like off a cliff.
yeah,
So all right, so things were going good, and
yeah,
then um, tell us about this year. So we're recording this late October 2024. So the year we just talked about was 2023. So now we're nearing the end of 2024. How's this
yeah.
year been?
Yeah, so I'm right now 706 in gross profit, or sorry, gross revenue. I'm looking at a net of about 30 something percent. We'll see. And then yeah, so it's going terrific. I'm working about 30 hours a week, 25 hours a week.
Great.
So
And where do you expect you'll finish out this year?
somewhere between 850 and 950.
All right, so let's just call it 900 for easy math, around
Yeah.
30% net, which is not almost the same as you were last year with doing all the painting. How much painting have you done this year?
Not much. I mean, I did a bit in the start of the year, but I haven't touched a brush now in 2 months, even for samples, like just not at all.
All
So
right, good. And
yeah,
before that, it was samples. When's the last time you were like out there, painting an 8 hour day?
April maybe.
Very
Yeah,
good. Very
yeah,
good. All right, great. So 900,000, looking to bring in 250 to 300, which is pretty amazing because that's what you did in
yeah,
top line last year.
Yeah.
So, and you went from working 50 hours a week down to 30.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not
Congratulations.
bad. No, not
Yeah.
bad.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yeah.
It's why Matt's here, because that trend of like, yeah, 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, this is an unpredictable change that, for most people would be a life-changing change. If I could get 20 hours back and 2 to 3x my income in 1 year, who wouldn't do that? So, first of all, how's this year been for you? Like, has it been surprising? Has it been like awesome? What's it been like for you to experience that kind of change?
It's definitely surprising. I mean, I think there's stuff that I theoretically think is possible, but then as to like, this is actually, something that can happen and this quickly is astonishing. Because like looking back at last year, for example, it's kind of really where I decided that my business needed to change, and I had toyed around with the idea of like just constantly doing math of like, okay, if I make $25 an hour off of 5 guys and I've got a crew lead and 2 helpers, then like that's this much money in revenue a year, and like I can so just get more leads, bring more people in, and then hire a few crews and then run my crews. And so I always wanted to grow. And then I read the email and I'm like, man, I have to systemize. I have to bring people in. I have to change the way that I fundamentally do business. And I can't do everything myself, you know?
That book, I feel like anybody who reads it impacts you. I remember
Yeah.
reading it in like 2007 or 8 or something like that. First of all, how'd you end up reading that book?
Well, I wanted to grow, right? So I kind of went through, uh, I Google search like what are the best business books to read, and I always Google search it, but I always do Reddit as well because I want to see what people on Reddit think, and also like all the magazines, and then what are recommended on both. I'm like, okay, this is good because if the magazines recommend it and like the shitheads on Reddit recommend it, it's good stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and just read it, and it was super. Um, I could really resonate with the stories that were being told in it, and just the storytelling of like, hey, we've got this person in business that they feel like they have to do everything because if it's not done by them, someone will do it as well. It's like, yeah, that's me. And I was at the point where like I was thinking about scaling down because I'm like, I can make the same net if I do everything myself and just get rid of the other people because they're stressors, right? And then just be a painter, do smaller jobs, make more money net profit wise, and and in my mind, like that was the easier route. It's like I'll do 200, 250, still make about 110, 120, and just have less stress.
That was the plan.
Yeah.
When did you read the book?
Early last year. So it would have been like end of 2021, started 2023.
Started 2023. Okay, so you read it then, and then
Yeah.
like made some changes, but
Yeah.
then this year is when a lot of things started to shift. So, um, what were the like? How did this happen? So, what were the big changes you made? If we and what we want to get to here, Matt, is, as you know, because you've listened to some of these, is the 2 or 3 changes because it's usually not complicated. It's just complicated because people don't know how to do it yet. But
Yeah.
once it's like, this is how you do it, you're not that far away from doing it. So
Yeah.
that's what we want to show people on this show, this episode with you, is that these were the few changes you made to really make it's an insane change in your business and life. So
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was systems and people. As I needed systems, I needed to bring people in, and I was really, really afraid to do that.
yeah,
Growing up in the business, there was a lot of things that I learned. Some of them were good, some of them were bad, but I didn't know that all of the things that I learned were bad, right? And so one of the things that I learned was bad was that people are stressed because like I in my dad's business saw him grow. He had about 8 painters, and like that's the time in his business that he hated the most, that he felt the most stress. And knowing other painters as well that like they grew and then shrunk because it was like, man, this is just too much work. Managing people is too stressful, and it's easier to do it on your own. And employees were this kind of big like issue where it took a while for me to let go of that and to let people do certain things. So
hmm. What specific change did you make around that? Like, how did you how did you quit painting? Did you literally just stop doing it? Did you?
basically, I mean, I realized that I had to hire people. So in 2024 now, so yeah, 2023, I had one other painter full time and one painter half time, and then one of my painters I lost. They just decided to like stop working for a while, and then that prompted me to like I have to hire people because I will not finish half of the work that I have lined up with just two guys, and so I finally was willing to like look at hiring just because I had to. And I thought about it for a while, and I never had a shortage of work, so that that was never an issue. I was never worried about keeping people busy. It was just I just didn't want to bring people on because I saw that as an issue. As I just figured people are problems,
Yeah.
um, and so because I had that person left, I had to hire, which was actually really good because I started the hiring process and like figuring out how do I bring someone on, how do I find someone that has similar values to me, and then teach them and train them. Um, so that was kind of one of the big unlocks for me is like to grow, I have to have more than just myself
Yeah.
and one other friend, right?
So in some ways, you're actually forced to do it.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I would have either way.
Yeah, it's amazing how oftentimes it's these situations we didn't want to be in that force us to do the things we need to do. There was someone the other day who I was talking with who runs a painting company and a remodeling company, and his partner in the remodeling company basically was like, "I quit," and he
Yeah,
can't run that business without him. And I'm like, dude, that's the greatest gift ever because it's really hard to turn off money.
yeah,
You probably never would have, but that's going to be so much better to focus you because you're going to be more successful running one company than two.
yeah,
And in your case, it's like, if that painter never quit and you didn't have all that work, like who knows how much longer you'd have kind of stuck with that people are problems and not make that change.
yeah.
Do you use employee crews, sub crews, or combination of both?
Both. Yeah. So I have an employee crew, and then I try to keep them well trained and on the tougher projects,
Yeah.
and then I have sub crews as well, and honestly, the sub crews are awesome. So that was
Yeah.
another thing too, that I thought subs were just the biggest shitheads in the world,
Yeah.
and so that was a mindset shift when I brought a couple on, and they did terrific work, and the customers loved the subs, and I was like, wow, these are awesome people that really know their stuff, that do great work, and customers love them as well.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more. Let's spend some time first on this labor force thing, because
Yeah,
if you never got over that and
yeah,
we're like, wow, I can effectively hire great people who will do great work for me. If we never got that sorted out, then the business would fundamentally be limited to you and
yeah,
whatever you can keep your hands on, which would basically
yeah,
be a crew or two.
yeah. Because I mean, for me, it was family and friends, right? That's what the crew was. It was just like
Yeah.
one close friend and my dad,
Yeah.
who was working part time with me. And then again, with having, it was actually my dad who ended up like, he's like, oh, I can't work, so he had a couple of reasons why he couldn't continue to work. And it was just tough with two people to do what we were doing. And then I'm like, yeah, I got to start hiring. And this you'll find funny. Like, I had never been in a job interview. So I'd never been interviewed or interviewed anyone. So I'm like, I had threw up an Indeed ad, had a couple of people apply, and then I scheduled an interview. And I had this lady come out 10 minutes before she arrived. I called my wife. I'm like, hey, I'm doing an interview. She's like, yeah, I know. What do I ask in an interview? I've never been in one. And then that person, they never showed up. Like, they accepted my job offer and they never showed up, and did another one. And it was just a learning process, right? Of like, how do I bring people in and kind of explain what we're trying to do and what our business is like. And so I hired a few employees, did that.
How did that go, by the way? Success, not success? What were the failures? What were the successes in hiring? Because this was still an employee painter, right?
Yeah.
This was when you were essentially building the first crew,
Yeah.
and then your next crews are all subcontractor crews. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, it went horrible to start with, and then
Yeah.
it went better over time. So the first person, they didn't show up. The second
Uh-huh.
person, they were there for 2 days and I got rid of them. The third person made it 5 days and then I got rid of them. And then by my fourth person, they were okay. There was a lot that I would have liked to be different, but I was definitely learning. And it was just learning by failure, right? Like, I failed 4 times and the fourth one still wasn't great. My fifth hire was an amazing painter, and I still have her with me today. And so just learning how to fail and just keep going. Like, okay, yeah, this person didn't work out, and keep going. And then I've brought subs on since then as well.
What did you improve each time? Each time you failed? Because this is where, as much as everyone says we learn from our failures and failures the stepping stones to success and all the
Yeah,
bullshit everyone says, what most people do is a couple people don't show up and they're like, yep, can't find anybody good, and it's just like, period, end of trying. So what were
yeah,
the for someone who didn't do that, how did you improve each time? Like, what were the things you learned? All right, this didn't work here, so I did this bit different the next time. Like, what were the things you've learned about hiring where now you can do it effectively?
Yeah, I mean, I really dove into a ton of podcasts, industry podcasts about hiring and about, you know, like doing an interview process. And so I was really diving into material on like, how do you effectively do an interview? How do you,
Hmm,
write an employment agreement so someone understands what they're doing? Um, and the first one too, I didn't know what to say. So it was probably
right.
pretty obvious that I didn't know what I was doing. But honestly, just looking at resources from people that knew what they were doing, that was the big thing, right? Is because I didn't know what I was doing. So I'd do an interview, listen to a podcast or video or whatever, and like, oh, okay, that's what I need to add on. And so each time I probably learned one small thing and didn't apply it very well, and then kept doing it, and now I'm a lot better. Not that I'm good at it yet, but
What were the? Do you have any specific resources that you remember being really helpful?
yeah. So I mean, there's just tons. The Contract Revolution podcast was great.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So they had a few resources there about hiring processes and things.
That's contractor evolution with Breakthrough Academy.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that was good. Um, Other than that, I mean, there's just tons of articles. Like I just actually just go on Google and like how to hire someone, how to do an interview, and just take notes, and then make a list of questions, and then my interviews went from like 2 minutes to like, okay, 30 to 45 minutes to an hour long with someone good,
2 minutes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm laughter of recognition, man. At the
yeah,
very beginning, it's like I don't know what the heck to say. So kudos
yeah,
to you and acknowledgement of you to like figure it out and just keep going and get in there in this totally uncomfortable situation. Like, guys, that is what it takes. Like if
yeah,
you're not doing it because you don't know how, the only answer is get in there and suck. Go
yeah,
bomb. It will
yeah,
be okay. After the bomb interview happened, like you were still alive and you lived
yeah,
to fight another day, so that's awesome. Okay, and so that built your employee crew
yeah,
essentially. 4 or 5 failures, and then you got the woman who stuck with it to today.
yeah.
Have you had much turnover? Had to replace many people in that employee crew, or has that been pretty fixed since then?
No, since then it's been terrific, right?
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I try and utilize my employees to find more employees too, because like when I bring someone good on, it's like, hey, who else do you know that is good? So I find that's a really good way of bringing people on. But and they've also helped me find subs too, because they know other painters that are good, that are doing their own thing and wouldn't mind picking up some more work, right?
Yeah.
So I found a few of my subs that way. So
Interesting. Okay,
yeah,
great. So that's how you got the employee crew, and
yeah,
that's big because now you've got the confidence to, hey, if I lose someone or need another crew, like you know how to go and do it.
yeah,
Not like you're a master at it, but you've had success where you're like, I can do it again. I might fail, but that's a
yeah,
big win to claim
yeah,
for anybody who's stuck in that spot. Like that's the first big win. All right, so then let's talk about some contractors. You already mentioned a little bit the view you had before, and then you actually hired one. So first of all, why did you give it a shot? If you thought they all suck and they're all trash out there, like why did you even try?
yeah. I mean, honestly, it comes to the training program that I'm in, which I'm sure we'll get to at the end here. But it's with you
Are you
guys.
just talking about Painting Business Pro?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're not going to pitch it or anything, but you also don't need to dance around it.
yeah. So through Painting Business Pro, that's where I looked at it and said, okay, like I should try this out. Kind of it was explained like here's how it can work and here's the benefits for myself as the business owner, for the subcontractor, and for the client, right? Um, and I think one of the things that I've learned as I've started to use them is that like people that have in the painting industry that have skills, that are good with customers, that have a vehicle, have equipment, like they're not looking for jobs, they have businesses, and not all of them are as good at business as someone who's like, say, myself. Like I'm better at business than certain people, and they just have a harder time with the client acquisition and with like sales and marketing, but they're terrific painters. But they wouldn't necessarily apply for an employee painting role because they want to have the freedom of like, I get to do my own jobs and this and that. And so I've actually found the labor force for subcontractors is consistently better. Like there are some great employee painters, but honestly, I think there's more great subcontractor painters. So
Good. So I convinced you to give it a shot.
yeah,
Um, with just and just to reiterate a lot of things I say in there is, and I have videos on this on YouTube, but it's they're committed. Like there's no one who's like a subcontractor who like owns a painting company that doesn't have a background in painting. Like
Yeah.
the path is I'm first good at painting, and then I have some of my own equipment and tools, and then I'm tired of working for the guy I'm working for, so I branch off, and then I need to get work and business, and the easiest way to go get business is from a guy like us who already has a ton of business. And I'm totally content. The best subcontractors actually don't want to get their own work. They're happy being like, hey, I work directly for this guy who gives me all my business, and I make good money doing all that. And that's what it is. So you've got someone who has experience, who has their own equipment, who has their own, vans and everything. They often have their own guys, they have their own insurance, and they're passionate enough about what they're doing that they actually started a business and are investing in it.
Yeah.
And so, and then there's all these other benefits, like you don't have to worry about payroll taxes. You don't have to worry about keeping their schedule perfectly busy all the time. You don't have to worry about training them necessarily. You can pay per job. So it fixes your margins. So there's a number of things that I say, hey, this is why it makes sense. Not to mention the seasonality too, because you're in Canada and I'm in Colorado, and
Yeah.
we have a season, and I can't ramp up this employee crew and then lay them all off. It's just a daunting task, and
Yeah.
subcontracting allows you to kind of flex with the seasonality. So just to get that clear. So that's basically, Matt saw some things about that, and then the exact process to follow. Okay, so then you took a stab at it, and you said the
That's
first
good.
one just went amazingly well. What happened?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first job it was super smooth. I was on the site for, I don't know, a total of 6 hours, including the estimate. Got a 5-star review. Customer super happy. Sub was happy. So it's like, okay, the person I'm working with is happy. The customer's happy. It's like, it probably means I'm happy as well. And I was, right. Cause I got paid and made good money, especially for the time that I was there. So
Is
used to
that
just being on
less is
site.
that less time you manage that project than you normally like?
Oh
How
yeah.
does managing projects with your subcontractor crews versus your employee crews differ? Or is it
So
kind of the same these days?
now they're the same, but back then they weren't, because I'd like first day be there for most of the day and end of the job, be there for all the touch ups and this and that, and just spend more time with them. And part of that is because I was hand holding. I've always been afraid of giving people control big time.
Yeah.
Right. And so I limited my employee crews, in that, like, I wanted to do everything and I wanted to ensure it was all done properly. And I really took away that opportunity from my employees. And so it's kind of the way that subcontracting works. It just doesn't make sense for me to hover over people. And so it kind of forced me to let go of control and then just let people do great shit on their own without me.
Yeah.
So,
Great. And so now, pacing to do $900,000, what does your workforce look like? Your labor force look like? So you've got your crew. How many people are on that?
so 3 employee painters. I
Uh-huh.
have 5 subcontractors and 1 project manager who's
You said
working
five
the last,
subcontractors?
yeah, 5.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all just single man outfits,
Okay.
right? So it's just one person per crew, which is why I like currently to have the employee painters. Is like I can throw them at the bigger stuff, and then my
Yeah.
subs do the other jobs that are manageable for one person.
Yep.
So yeah,
Okay. Awesome. And then you
yeah,
have a project manager
yes,
and when did that
month and
just
a half ago. So that's
oh,
really new.
new.
He's doing terrific. So he was actually one of my employee painters, which was sweet because he has seen a lot of how we do things, and it's kind of had that in-house training, and then it's just shifted the role, right? Which has actually been working out really really well, and yeah, it's taken a ton off of my plate as well.
Yeah. Amazing, man. All right, great. And so he started a month and a half ago. Is he still in training, or is he actually taken accountability over projects now?
He's doing projects. I'm hovering over him just to make sure, like, hey, everything's going well. Like, how did this go? How did that go? What's your schedule look like? So he's in training and will be for another 2.5, 3 months, 4 months. Like,
6 months.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
make sure he's terrific. And so until he's killing it, like he's in training, until he's training other people.
You might have already seen this, but just to mention it, a good benchmark to know when he's trained is if you define trained as he has demonstrated under observation competence,
Yeah,
meaning you have actually watched him perform every part of his job multiple times. So you can see different versions, right? Every client's different, different jobs
yeah,
are different, but you've actually watched him do every part of his job multiple times, and there's like no feedback.
yeah,
Like, dude, you nailed that. Like, you're doing it the way I would do it.
yeah,
I remember I was training Hunter at one time to lead a couple of our company development calls, and I would get off afterwards, and I would just ask him like, a couple questions, and if he had the same, I knew he was ready to do it when he was saying the same things I was going to say. I'm like, yep, we both heard the same thing, heard the same thing there, heard the same thing there, would have taken it there. Perfect. You're ready to go.
Yeah.
So, and that will take time,
Yeah.
but I mean, you hire people to do the job for you. And so don't you want to make sure they're doing it as well as you?
Better.
One way to, yeah,
Honestly, like
or
if
better.
they're spending all their time on it, they should do it better than I do it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And the only way to know is by observation.
Yeah.
And almost universally, people underdo that.
Yeah.
Okay, so huge, man. All right, so you've gotten over this bottleneck now of hey, I'm going to hire people, I'm going to train people. So that was one really critical piece, and that was less complicated than you had it made up in your head. I'm assuming it sounds
Yeah.
like. Okay. And I mostly just want to say that for people that like, hey, this is more of a mental hurdle than a reality hurdle.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. The second thing that that I think about is the margins, right? Because you were making, if you had to pay an employee painter in 2023 to do all the painting you were doing,
Yeah.
that would have been at least 50,000 or something, maybe more.
Yeah, I mean, towards the end of 2023, I had employee painters doing most of the work. I'd still be
Yeah.
on site here and there.
Mhm.
You know, so I say my week was 16 to 20 hours of painting a week.
Okay.
Um,
Maybe 30,000. So margins, your
yeah,
margin had to get better for you to completely quit painting, but to still be netting 30.
yeah.
Did you raise prices? Did you what did you do around the profitability of the business? What changes did you make?
Prices went up a bit.
Yeah.
You know, they were already pretty good. One
Yeah.
of the things that like I learned, which was fortunately for me a good thing, is I had a big commercial job I looked at ages ago, and I looked at it with another painter that was doing that in my area, and I asked him like, hey, like how do you quote a job like this? And he's like, well, if you're going to break even, do it on a bathroom. You know, and I took that and I ran with it where I'm like, oh, okay. So if I'm doing anything that I can't just get done in a day or two, I'm going to charge a lot of money. Because I'm like, if I don't make money on a job and then I'm there for 2 weeks, like I'm screwed, you know, like I need to profit to pay bills and whatever. And so my margins have been good, you know, largely due to that advice that I got. And then again, I ran with it, just
Yeah.
making sure that if I'm working, I'm going to make money. I'm not going to do it for $20 an hour. I'm going to make sure I'm profitable.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just, you know, crank it a little bit more and make sure I have the room to pay people and pay them well.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So did you raise prices at all when you transitioned totally to like not being involved in the painting at all?
Honestly, barely at all. Like,
Okay. So you didn't change price much.
no, not much. It's
Okay.
gone up since then a little bit, but yeah, like
Okay.
10%.
Okay. Maybe
Yeah,
10%. Nothing substantial. And what's your
no.
what percent are you paying to labor and materials?
They get about 48%. So I'm grossing 52%.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Super healthy. All right,
Mhm.
that's really good. So then it comes down to the growth of sales.
Yeah.
So tell us about that. How did that grow? You've tripled from 23 to 24.
Yeah. I mean, a large part of it is just having the labor force to take on the work that was available to me because I've been it's frustrating to see now that I know what I can do in terms of production and sales because I've had, you know, when you look at the leads through my website, which is when we'll get to marketing, I know is a topic we'll chat about. Like I rank well on Google, and so I get a ton of leads through my website, and those are really, really good leads because people on my website, like I've got my pricing on there. I don't beat around the bush at all. I'd rather pre-qualify than have someone price shop me, and and so I've had enough leads to do somewhere between $600,000 to $800,000 in business,
Hmm.
depending on what, you know, my sales rate would have been back there versus is now. But I've had tons and tons of work, and I was just turning it down for years. So
Wow,
really, all I had to do this year was just sell those jobs. You know, and that was easy when I wasn't painting.
amazing. It wasn't what I expected you to say.
Okay.
But I mean, I just it's almost more of a blind spot for me. And then, but as you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, that is really common. That people get busy and then turn down work. Sometimes not like I get on the phone and I say no. It's
Yeah.
sometimes by just omission.
Yeah.
Like I don't call the lead back. Like I'm
Yeah.
not aggressively pursuing it. Like
Yep.
I'm not treating my leads the way I would if I was hungry.
Yeah.
And then I also know that this time of year, right now, it's October, the weather is all turning. And for us, like this is when we clean up because we hear from a lot of customers that they can't find anyone who will do an estimate.
Yeah.
They're calling companies, companies don't answer. Or companies are saying, well, we're booked. And they're just not prepared for it. So I do know that it is a common thing for a lot of companies out there that are stuck because of labor. I've got these 2 crews, and once I fill them up, we're full and we turn down work. I forgot that that's such a thing. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are in that position. Can you elaborate on, you said something like, man, looking back, it's kind of painful. Knowing
It's
what you
super
know
frustrating,
now.
yes, because looking back, I would hit July, and by July, I'd be booked for the year for exteriors,
Mhm.
and I would always have about 50% of all my exterior work booked before we finished painting the last house for last year, right?
Yeah.
And so, I'd hit for you guys, like I'd be the painting contractor people called where like, I've got a bunch of Google reviews, I'm being referred, like there's people that want to work with me that are happy to pay me money. And I pick up the phone, I'm like, hey, see you next year, can't touch it. I've had years where like, I don't know if I can get to everything for next year because I'm already basically booked. So
Wow.
yeah,
You know, it's a really powerful point here is that this labor thing not only unlocks the ability to do more, but it actually unlocked a lot of the business that was just already there.
yeah,
Daniel Thayer,
yeah,
I mean, it was a similar situation where he had so much business. The reason he grew from 1.7 to 3.8 in 1 year was mostly unlocking business that was already there by solving other bottlenecks.
yeah.
Mostly in his sales process, his profit. Anyway, it didn't matter what he did, but okay,
It's a
really
great
great.
story.
So,
Anyone who hasn't heard it should listen to it because he's awesome.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, he's a character, dude.
he's
I
fun.
love Daniel. He's a funny guy, great
Yeah.
guy, and he's ripping it. But okay, so what are you doing for marketing? So
Most of
that
it's,
generated all that demand. Like
yeah.
if you just said here, let's walk through the whole marketing mix for a $900,000 business.
Yeah, so most of it's going to be SEO. I dove into years ago just how to build a website, and I went on Wix, created a website, and it was a terrible website. It did nothing for years, and then I met a guy who was building ClickFunnels, and then he's like, "Dude, you need to have a button that says book." I'm like, "Oh, that makes sense," because it was just photos. It was like, "Here's the work I've done," and no one cares because it's houses, and there's not even photos of people painting in them. So it's just like, what is my service? Am I a realtor? Who knows? Because most people don't read text. So just realizing like how web design works, how people skim, and I dove into the weeds well enough that I ended up ranking number one in a small market, which is great because it gets me about 250 leads a year, and they're all awesome leads because like my website's designed to only give me the leads that I want. Like I've got all of my photos, are of nice projects. I've got my pricing on there. So, like one thing for me, because I was so busy, people would price shop. I'm like, oh, how much do you charge? It's like a lot. Leave me alone. But yeah, SEO's been huge, and referral, right? Because we're known around town that like I've been here for years. And so I grew up like the paint reps know me for 20 years. I was 3 years old walking around with my dad. And so that's been massively helpful.
And what is your market?
It's so within about an hour drive, it's about 160, 170,000. I looked it up a while ago. I think that's what it was.
1 hour
My
radius, 160,000 people. And what's the city?
Nanaimo. So Nanaimo itself, the last census was I think 90,000, unless that's been updated. It's
Okay.
probably more like 110 right now.
Uh-huh. And where is
So
this for people?
Vancouver Island, Canada,
Oh, you're
Nanaimo,
on
BC.
Vancouver Island.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
All
just
right.
north of Seattle for anyone who doesn't know what Nanaimo is.
Yep. Okay. So 160,000 people. Not huge. I mean, that's like
No.
Fort Collins. So and then, on Google, you have 71 reviews, the 4.9 rating. And if I search painter, uh, painting company, let's see how it looks. So you're uh, one of the most reviewed.
Yeah.
What?
Depending on what you put in, like Nanaimo painters, I come up first. And depending on the search query you use, I'll come up first, second, or third
Yep.
for
Okay.
most
So
those
you're
in Nanaimo.
I mean, that's just 101 stuff.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I see you as number two. I put in Nanaimo Painting Company, and you're
Yeah.
number two in organic.
Yeah.
You're number three in maps.
Yeah.
All right. And so, oh my God, student works painting still?
Yeah,
Your student works up there still?
we still have that.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
They were all done.
No, no, not here.
You're
Yeah.
also on that page a second time. Okay, so you built a website, but so I mean, guys, Google, I mean, SEO and
Yeah.
maps is just like you got to do it. Like
Yeah.
the return on investment on that is just bonkers. It's still underpriced.
Yeah.
There's only a few positions. I mean, there's only 3 spots in the top three,
Yeah.
and the top three is where you need to be. But there's only 3 spots. So how do you get
Yeah.
those 3 spots? Well, you got to get lots of reviews and you got to pay.
Yeah.
You got to pay for SEO or do it yourself. But did you do it most of yourself or do you pay someone to do it?
All of it myself. I've just hired on someone in the last month.
Yeah.
So they're just starting to tweak things.
Uh-huh.
And that's because we want to grow into other markets. But no, it was all DIY. I just went
And
on YouTube.
you don't have to be DIY.
Yeah.
But you do. I mean, people underestimate the value of being on that first page. So the way that you figure this out is if you're a company, you just go search painters in, put in your city or painting contractor city or painter city and just see like, are you in the top 3 on the organic listings? Are you top 3 in the maps? And if you're not, then you're missing out on tons and tons of business. And to get in that position, what's been from what you educated yourself on and what you've done, like what does it take to get in the top 1 to 3 positions?
I mean, Google wants to know what the searcher's intent is. So if like bicycle shops in Denver, you better have articles about the bike races in Denver. You better have information about what the best tire is. And they just want to know who has the most information related to that search query. So you want to answer that question that they have and their next 5 questions. That and the research that I did 3.5 years ago, 2 years ago, was how to rank in SEO. Is just like write about it. Provide useful information, backlinks, meta tags. There's just kind of like technical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's ever changing, but the biggest thing is just answer the question and answer it really well. And don't use ChatGPT to do it. Just like in your own words, do you need to prime walls before painting?
Yep. Well, and what you could do is if here's what I would recommend to anyone listening, because this is such an important piece to your marketing mix. Any big company is going to have this dialed because again, it's really underpriced. So we'll spend $1,500 a month or something on our SEO, but we'll generate hundreds, over 6 figures a month from SEO. What's your for you, Matt? What's the amount of business of that 900? How much comes from your website?
I mean, probably 60% ish.
Okay, so $500,000-$600,000 in a pretty small market.
Yeah.
And there's probably, and that's also with filtering out that you probably could start to take away some of that friction again and open that a little bit more too.
Yep.
Probably some other opportunities.
I could do a lot better job getting back to my leads. I've still been hitting my rev limiter of like, without working more, I can't get back to these people. So I've left a lot of leads.
You're still leaving money on the table right now.
I'm still leaving. My guess is about $400,000 on the table right now.
Okay, so
looking at all the leads I don't contact and like how sloppy my lead follow up is.
So that will put it at about $1 million a year from this one marketing source called SEO and ranking at the top of Google.
Yeah,
I don't think that's going to be going anywhere anytime soon.
No,
and that's about what I just said Foothills does, and Fort Collins is about 160,000 people as well.
Yeah.
And so even if you're in a small market, it's easier to rank. If you're in a big market, you're not usually in that. So Denver, it's not just all of Denver. There's Denver, and then there's every suburb. There's Dallas, and then there's every suburb. And if you just rank at the top of the suburb, that's what Google wants, because they'd rather serve, if you're in Plano, Texas, they'd rather serve you in Plano than someone who's focusing on Dallas.
Yeah, it's highly location based.
Yeah, it's very location based. And so there's tons of these positions, in the big metros, there's 30 top 3s, because every suburb has a top 3. So there's not it's not that competitive. Like you can get in the top 3. You just have to hire someone who's good at SEO. So Matt did tons of this. Now, what I don't want you guys to be left with is that you have to go and learn SEO like Matt did. He likes it.
Yeah.
That's the only way he learned it.
Yeah.
If he didn't like it, he wouldn't have done it.
It's an option though. It's something that people can do if they're scrappy and they want to get into it.
Totally. You absolutely can. And if you're not, then go have a 15 to 20 minute conversation with ChatGPT about how do you rank a local painting company on SEO and on Google Maps, and just go back and forth with it and use what you learn there to interview and qualify an SEO company. What expectations should people have if they start investing their time or money into someone else? What should someone's expectations be, do you think, for when they'll start to see results from SEO efforts?
It takes a while. You're looking at, I'd say, of a minimum of 3 to 6 months before you're going to see rank results change. Like, it doesn't happen right away because there's so many people that know what to do. And if it was just a matter of like doing the thing, then SEO agencies could just make 1,000 or 1,000,000 good painting websites and everyone would rank number one. So Google is very aware of when people are gaming the system. So they do a really good job of making sure that it's like organic, legit websites. And there's websites that are made by SEO agencies that are like more on the scammier side that they don't do well, because they're not following best practices and they're, maybe using ChatGPT, but it takes a while, but it's insane like how well it works. Because there's the year I'm at like a 3% cost of marketing on 900 grand. And I could have done, if I called everyone back basically and had a PM earlier, probably 1.3 or 1.4 mil.
Yeah.
So,
which is now what you're predictably teed up for next year.
Yeah.
Which is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Which is pretty sweet. Okay. So, Matt said 3 to 6 months. I think if you're in non-competitive small markets, that's probably reasonable where you start to see results, but it might be 12 before you're actually in like those top positions.
Yeah.
If you're in more competitive markets, it could be 6 to 12 months before you start to see the return. But the longer you do it, the higher you can get if the person you're working with is any good, that you can get to those top positions. You can go search what it takes to do that. But getting those top positions is huge. And to your point, 3% cost of marketing on a $900,000 business is amazing.
Yeah, and SEO's got to be, interesting to hear your take. It's one of the only places where you go specifically looking to hire someone.
Yeah.
Right? Because like you go into a bike shop to buy a bike, you go on to Google searching for painters because you want to know who's available, how much they charge, and if they can come out and give you a quote. Right? So setting up those leads into estimates is way easier, and selling those estimates is a lot easier as well.
Oh yeah, we have a super high lead conversion on those leads. We have a super high sales rate on those leads. Those people are going straight to you. They've looked at your reviews. Like those are like the best leads. They're high intent, and they're yours. That lead that comes through your website isn't automatically going to other painting companies. Although I still promote using lead services, but it's the best. It is the best, and it's underpriced. It's the biggest return we have on anything we spend on marketing is on our website and SEO.
Yeah, it's insane. It's awesome. I love it. So
yeah. And then the other best thing is referrals. So we'll get to, there's basically the leftover. What else do you do for marketing aside from website, SEO, and referrals? Is there anything else you're doing for marketing right now?
I've screwed around on Facebook, but like I haven't taken it seriously because I'm like, let's see if I can crank this dial and bring more leads, and I can, right? So just providing good content, interesting media that people know right away, like, hey, you're a painting company, because I can see someone painting the photo. It's not just a house or this or that. So that works. But again, like I'm pretty limited as to what I can do without just working more, which I don't really want to do because I'm going to have a great year regardless. Why do I need to go crazier? Mm-hmm. So, like Facebook's great. And then it's, other than that, referrals. That's huge.
It. So it's website and SEO, Facebook, and referral. And honestly, if you didn't do Facebook, you would have just called more of your website leads.
Pretty much.
So you could be, and going into next year, it's like, I could probably do 1.3 million with website, SEO, and referrals.
I will do 1.3 next year with website and SEO. It's not that I could. I know it's there. So yeah.
All right, great. So, there you have it, folks. It's about doing few things well, not lots of things.
On a funny note, so going back to, I mentioned this earlier that I had a funny story about lead gen. Is I had, when I was, I think 14, just kind of like helping out with the business, I went and took some photos and little like, hey, we do painting. And I threw that on Kijiji, which I don't know if you guys even have that down in the States, but little like local classifieds thing. And so generated my first lead at 14 years old or something like that, just throwing up like, here's some photos of a painting. And, so I think for anyone who's like, man, what do you do for marketing? It's like, do something. Just post, knock on doors. Like there's so much work. I don't know.
Yeah. There is a enormous amount of work. You just gotta, and at the beginning, like you gotta hustle. The first jobs are the hardest to get.
Yeah.
And then it gets easier and easier. What do you got? So you've been in your market for a long time and you still generate a lot of business from referrals. I mean, it's 30% or so of your revenue, which last year that would have been like, that's as much as you did all of last year. Um, what's your view on how to maintain that reputation and maintain referrals? And what are you keeping your attention on as you grow to
Yeah.
keep that? Because it's healthy, it's a healthy rate of referrals for you right now,
Yeah.
which makes everything easier in your whole business, makes
Yeah.
every other marketing avenue more profitable. Because if I get a job from direct mail, that job turns into, you know, what third of the time it turns into another job. So it increases the results you get from everything else you do. I mean, it's a game changer to maintain a high rate of referrals. Have you thought about what you need to be focused on as you grow to maintain that level of service and reputation?
Yeah, I mean, the way we do is just make sure that every client's experience is as good as possible. And if it doesn't go well, like take ownership for the issues. You know, if a customer's upset about some expectation that they thought, I just need to communicate better. So take care of the issue, solve it. Don't beat around the bush. Just like, oh, I've got to paint this thing. Cool, I'll repaint it. Like it needs two coats of a different color. I screwed up, or even maybe it was the customer's fault. Like I just handle it. You know, I would rather lose 2,000 on a project, break even on a project, and have a happy client, because it's avoidable. You know, like there's typically a mistake that's like I can identify as like, oh, I screwed up here, you know, or I didn't communicate clearly here. And so there's, you know, a handful of situations where stuff doesn't go well and I just solve it. Right. And that's, you know, I think massive with referral, especially for me, it's a lot of paint stores. You know, they know that when they refer me, I will do what I said I'm going to do and do it well. You know, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm not going to, you know, go and try and cheat someone. It's just like, I'm going to do the job.
Yeah.
So,
You know, one of the challenges, because everything you said there is good. You
yeah,
know, I totally endorse everything you said. The challenge with maintaining the level of service is I didn't have any way to measure it before.
yeah,
And so I never really know. You know, the only measurement I have is how many referrals am I getting?
yeah,
And once those die off, like it takes a while to realize like referrals are down.
yeah,
You know, it's like a year or two late. And then reviews. But what I noticed at our company was we've always had a 4.9 rating on Google, but we are delivering per our customers and other ways we're measuring it a far superior customer experience now than we were 5 years ago.
yeah,
But we've always had the same rating,
yeah,
and then problems and how we've always had dealt with them the same way, where it's like, yeah, we always take responsibility on. But it is a challenge to start, when you're the one who is the salesperson and the project manager and that communication the whole way through, you're at every point. So you just know that they're being taken care of amazingly every step
yeah,
of the way. And so anyways, it's just a thing to pay extra attention to, is like, how are we gonna make sure that that stays impeccable?
yeah,
And we mentioned a little bit earlier with, like, man, you just got to get your eyes on what your project manager is doing, but
yeah,
there might be some other measures to consider
yeah,
of, like, what are the metrics we're going to track here
yeah,
to keep that good at 900, at 1.3, at 2, at 3.
yeah.
Because it will be that will become more of a challenge as your company grows.
Yeah.
Where do you see, how have your goals changed from a year ago? Just a year ago, you were finishing up 300K and
Yeah.
getting past, the mindset around hiring people.
Yeah.
How have your goals changed, and how has what's possible changed for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, my goals were like 2020, 2021. I was at a crossroads where it's like, what do I want to do? Right. I had some things, you know, maybe I wanted to be a welder or this or that. Like kinesiology was interesting, but I was just painting. And it's like, do I really want to paint forever? It's like, I don't love it enough, like that I'm passionate about it. Like this is work for me. But there were aspects that I enjoyed. And so my goal back then was, I just want to do this thing that I'm doing really, really well. Part of what I saw when I started doing estimates on my own is that there was a ton of people that would just like write on a note or send a text. So send a real quote. You know, my quotes back then weren't real, but they were a lot more real than my competitors. And so just constantly leveling up and looking like, how can I be the best in my market? And that's not to say that I want to be better than my competitors, but like better than I was last year.
Yeah.
And so I got really fixated on that. And that in the early days was like, how do I perform a better paint job? So I got really into that,
Yeah.
and now it's a much wider scope for me. What I look at as better, it's a better business, it's a better lead to referral to this, to that. There's so many things that are encompassed, but like I just want to do a terrific job of being a painting business.
Yeah.
And so goals, like loosely speaking, I wanted to be able to at some point sell is kind of, that's what I had envisioned.
Hmm.
But now it's, I just want to have a terrific company that is profitable, that I enjoy being a part of, and I'll probably end up back on the tools just to help train people because I actually don't mind the painting,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't mind being like helping out with crews and whatnot, and then just providing support for, my project manager, sales reps, and all that as the company
Yeah.
grows.
Well, this I get some shit because I don't talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
But it's not because I don't value it. But I don't talk often about, just the actual subcontractors and the crews and all of that, because that's not really like what I'm teaching.
Yeah.
Um, but at our inside our own companies, like that's one of the biggest focuses. So I don't think that would at all be like a bad place to allocate a lot of your time,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, like the customer experience is most powerfully impacted by the people who are on the job site,
Yeah.
and the customer experience is everything.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, you build that really well. I think it's mostly overlooked. The
Yeah.
people who are doing the best job of that are also the smallest companies, and the people who get big get so focused on all the business stuff that they forget that.
Yeah.
And so, how do we bring those two things together, and like that obsession with the customer's experience and the people on the job being totally empowered and aligned and doing excellent work with also a big company?
Yeah.
I think is the biggest advantage that you can create for yourself. Is I
Yeah.
know the business and I figured out how to deliver at scale.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think people who enjoy the company that they're working for will do great work, right? So, like, I want to be great to work with, and I want my subs and my employees to really feel like they get a lot out of working with us. And I think then they'll then go the extra mile for my customers,
Yeah,
right? If they know that, like, man, they're appreciated, like they're a part of the team, I'm working with them, like I want them to succeed, and they know that and they feel that they'll go and they'll do an even better job.
yeah.
You
It's
know,
really great, man. Well, I appreciate that your answer to what are your goals now. You didn't go straight to, you know, how much money you're going to make and revenue, and instead your answer was, I want to love what I do. I want to build a company that's really great. I want to get really great at what we do. I want my people to love what they do. I want to be better than last year. Um, that is going to actually create a lot more success having that focus. But I think it says a lot about you that that is where your focus is, and that's the first thing that came out of your mouth. So
yeah,
acknowledge you for that, and just the commitment you have to building a good company and just doing things right.
perfect.
Yeah. Anything? So I think this was really made for people who are in a relatable spot to where you were. Is there any other um, advice you'd pass along to someone who's in that $100,000 to $300,000 range? Um, what have you learned? What wisdom have you gained from where you are today that you would pass on? If you could have given it to yourself 2 years earlier, you would have.
Yeah, I mean, being afraid to grow and seeing people as problems, right, was the biggest thing. Is I saw people as just more issues to bring into the business, and not collaborators. Like these were people that were going to add stress to my life, and they weren't going to take stuff off of my plate and work with me. And I know so many people, so many painters, because like I'm heavily involved in the industry. Like I know tons of people that are in it, and I've got friends that are painters that own other painting companies around, and the way they see growing their business is like it's a stressful thing, but it's not. And it's not to say that there won't be stress. There's always going to be stress. It's just how do you deal with it, and what systems do you have to fall back on when stuff goes haywire. So there's so many people that I know that could have a lot more free time. They could be making a lot more money and be a lot happier if they were just willing to grow and humble enough to ask for help. And that's what took me a super long time is, I ended up on Painting Business Pro because I'm like, I need SOPs for stuff. Like I need to figure out how to do it. I read the E-Myth and it's like, okay, you need to create systems to get the most out of ordinary people, is I think the way it's phrased, is like, rather than having extraordinary people, getting extraordinary results out of ordinary people, because you have great systems. And if you have extraordinary people and you give them extraordinary system, that's crazy, right? So it's just, either way, it just levels you up. But yeah, just being willing to grow and ask questions, I think it's been super helpful.
Right. Killer. Well, dude, I'm just super excited for your success so far. Excited to see where you're going to go, because I know this is like, there's like this trajectory and then such a huge year up. And I know next year is going to be really great. Just what's predictable already. So, yeah, thank you for coming on and sharing the story. And I guess that's it.
Perfect.
We'll see you around. You're the man.
Yeah. See you in the spring.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show. I hope you found it valuable. We make these episodes in the show for you, truly. So your feedback is super valuable to us, whether it's, things you liked, things you didn't like, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. Any feedback you can give us is going to be super helpful as we continue to evolve and improve the show over time. And if you want a copy of the Fast Growth Roadmap for Painting Contractors, which really simplifies the steps you take to building a business, we've got that resource for free for you. Just check the description or the bio where you're watching or listening to this episode, and you can just click and download that for free, and it should help give you a good roadmap for how to build and scale your business like the people that you're listening to on the show. So thanks for listening in. We'll see you soon.